My name's Hyams, and on this DVD I hope to give you a good overview of the Shopsmith combination woodworking machine. The DVD will last around 20 minutes, and in that time I hope to be able to demonstrate to you sawing, sanding, horizontal boring, vertical drilling, and to convert the machine into a lathe. If we stand back and look at the machine, you'll see that it's 6 foot long, 2 foot wide, and has casters, and we'll come back to the casters in a moment. The headstock is powered by a 2 horsepower induction motor, and it has an infinitely variable speed from 700 to 5,200 RPM, and we'll see that demonstrated in a moment. There's around 600,000 machines have been made since 1953, when the Shopsmith was first designed and developed in the States. They're still manufactured in the States, and there's around 3,000 owners currently in the UK. I'm one of them. I bought my machine from Shopsmith 11 years ago, and I can honestly say it's virtually in the same condition as this new demonstration machine here. They don't age really, they don't rust. My garage is particularly damp and it hasn't gone rusty. It still does what it says on the tin. The casters on the machine are operated by a foot mechanism, a small lever down here. We depress it and then we're on wheels and can shift the machine to wherever we need. It's convenient. And to lower it back down, it's simply press the lever once more. The first of the 5 functions we'll look at is the table saw. If I lift the guard, you can see the blade, which is a 10-inch diameter blade, which will give us a 3¼ inch maximum depth of cut. And you'll notice behind the blade we have the riving knife and anti-kickback mechanism, all contained within the cover. Now if I raise the table with a rack and pinion on the side, we raise the table to the correct height as if we were cutting through about a 1-inch timber. I'll just take a block and show you how the anti-kickback device works. As the material is being cut, the riving knife stops the gap from closing up, the curve from closing up, and behind that we have a cam which raises and locks so that the timber cannot kick back. The only way through is to continue through the machine. Then, with the cover down, your hands and anything else is well away from the machine, and it's quite safe to use. So we'll show you a simple cross cut, and for that we'll be using the miter gauge. Now this miter gauge from Shopsmith is quite unique, and it has a grip system. The pistol grip, as you squeeze it down, as you depress it, pulls the work back against the rear fence, holding it tight and square. I'll show you the advantage from that, or the advantage of doing that. I can lay a timber in underneath, squeeze, remove, and I'm holding the work tight. It's not going anywhere. That gives you the advantage. If you're cutting a long piece of timber, I can cut it and leave that, and it hasn't fallen. It keeps the work square and tight against the fence all the way through the cut, so there's no rounding of the edges afterwards. It does a good, clean, square cut. So I'll start the machine, increase the speed to about 4,500 revs. I don't need to remember that, it's stamped on the speed dial, and I'll do one simple cross cut. There we have a nice clean square cut. The next cut we'll do will be a miter cut, where we will take miter gauge, so we'll try a 45. Set to 45, we'll lock it off, place the timber underneath, squeeze the grip, and once again I've got the work solid, and run it through. see a perfect mitre cut. I'm just going to bring in a longer piece of timber and I'll trim it. I'll show you the way that the timber is held underneath the clamp and it doesn't fall when I cut it. I'll use this piece for the compound mitre cut, so here we go. Now this is the piece I'm going to use for the compound mitre. As you can see, this piece hasn't fallen to the floor, and if we examine the end we'll find it's dead square. So place that down and I'll reset the machine for the compound mitre. First job is to set the angle on the table, and for this I'm going to set it to 21 degrees. We do that by releasing this lever and we can adjust the table to 21 degrees, which is there, and we lock it off. And now I set the mitre gauge to, in this instance, 49 degrees. Simply loosen off the knurled nut, move the back around until it's at the right. You can read off here the degrees until it's at the right amount, and then tighten, and that's set. So now we have 49 degrees on the mitre gauge and 21 degrees on the table, and we're ready to make a cut. Place the timber under the grip, squeeze, I've got the work, and we start the machine and do the cut. And if we examine the results, we find we have a very clean and close fitting mitre cut. This is good for picture frames, bottom of clocks and cabinets, all reversed at the top over units as a decoration. Now the 49 degrees on the mitre and the 21 degrees on the table are all contained within the book. They're not figures I just plucked out of the sky, and if we have a look on one of the pages of the book, this book by the way comes with the machine, we have a page full of the different angles that you would set to do different cuts. From the 3-sided, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8-sided vessels and all the angles, we read it off, set, and it does what it says on the tin. And whilst you can see that this is a good fit, I don't think it's quite good enough to glue and use as a permanent fix, so we'll need to sand it. And it's always a challenge to sand a compound mitre cut. You enthusiastically rub away and round off all the corners. But with the Shopsmith I can change from the sawing function to the sanding function without altering any of the angles, and I can sand the compound mitre cut. Let me show you that.